Okay, so today I'm going to do an 11 by 22 inch alla prima oil painting of a wave. I'm going to be painting from a photograph that I took about 3 or 4 years ago at San Gregorio State Beach here in California. And the wave has a lot of glare on it. And I've kind of put off painting from this photograph because painting glare is really difficult. I've tried multiple times, and the problem is that the glare tends to look like it's sitting on top of the wave, like it's pasted onto the wave, and it's not, part of the surface of the wave, if that makes sense. Anyway, I'm just gonna get started and we'll see what happens. Okay, so I decided to tone the panel with burnt sienna. So I just thinned the burnt sienna with odorless mineral spirits, scrubbed it on, and then wiped it off with a paper towel. And now I'm sketching out the big shapes using burnt sienna and a small number 2. Actually, no, I think that's a number 4. Yeah, it's like a worn out number 4 natural bristle flat. And just getting the big shapes in place and now laying in the shadows. And I'm not going for accurate color yet. So I just starting with it's basically just ultramarine and a little bit of white to establish the shadows, and I'll adjust the colors later. Also, that blue-green in the foreground, that's way more saturated than it's going to be at the end of the painting. I just put a little spot of white, and that's to so that I can key the rest of the painting to that spot of white. That lets me know how bright, what my highest value is or my lightest value is. And because I want to make sure that these surrounding values are dark enough so that the glare really stands out when I put it on. And so that I'm using that little spot of white as a gauge. And now I've just painted over it because I decided that it's more or less like keeping everything more or less mid-tone. I should be okay when I go to put the glare on. So yeah, so at this point it's very abstract. I started off with after doing the initial scrub in, which I did with a natural bristle number 6, I switched over to a number 8 bright, a synthetic bright, but it was just too chiseled looking, and I liked the more fluid look that I was getting with the natural bristle flat, so I switched over to that. It's a number 8, kind of worn down, almost looks like a filbert. But it was working nicely. Anyway, right there, I'm trying to make sure that you can see into that shadow on the first wave there to the left. I do like the shadows to be, so where you can see into them, and instead of being so dark that they just look sort of pasted on or they look flat, being able to see into the shadows suggests like 3 dimensions. Just kind of experimenting with the highlights on the wave. The second wave up at the top left there, I kind of really struggled and had to experiment to get the glare to read properly. So now I'm coming in with white with a little bit of cadmium yellow medium, and especially placing that around the shadows to make to get that convincing feeling of light. But the glare on the upper left hand, I'm going to have to work with that. And definitely spend some time on it. To the right, I think it looks pretty good. And also, too, now I'm going to warm up the tops of the wave because they were kind of pinkish purple. And so, so now I'm coming in and also just sort of softening up the edges as well. All right, so I spent another half hour or so working on this. Spent most of the time on the glare up in this portion right here. I just couldn't get it to read properly. It wasn't looking like glare. I like to focus on big shapes, and I didn't want the glare to be too speckled and disjointed. So I tried to create an interesting pattern with it that didn't break up the overall design. And so, and also too, I noticed that the glare towards the top of the wave was much brighter because this wave had mist coming off the top. I also spent some time softening up the wave, in particular the wave on the top. It kind of had a few too many hard edges. That's one nice thing about a natural bristle brush. You can use it gently and you can kind of soften edges. So I kind of softened the top up. One thing that I really do think worked out, and I spent quite a bit of time, was getting the glow under this wave right here, in particular this viridian color. I really wanted to capture that, and yet the value shift between you know, the viridian and these sort of bluish purples was really slight. So it's more of a temperature shift than it is actually a value shift. And there is a bit of a value shift, but it's very, very delicate. Another thing that I think really worked out was just kind of randomly, you know, loading my brush and dragging it around and creating little specks of highlights on the water. As far as the glare goes, at first what I did was I just put kind of strong loaded strokes on of white with cadmium yellow medium, just a touch of yellow medium. And it did look like glare, but it did look a little bit too pasted on. You know, in other words, the paint looked like it was sitting on top of the wave. So what I did was I softened the edges just ever so slightly. This is one of those paintings where if you've got to walk back about 6 or 8 feet for it to read properly. Up close, it just looks like a bunch of, you know, kind of a mess actually. But from a distance, it really works. So I'm actually really happy with the way this came out. I feel like the glare was effective, and I like the composition and sort of the energy of the painting. The one thing I want to talk to you guys about is it became clear to me while I was doing this that all of the plein air painting that I've done of waves, I've done multiple. It's like one of the funnest things for me to do is go out and do plein air wave studies. It really helped with this painting for sure. There are things little details that I was able to include in this painting because I was working from a photograph. Things that I would not have been able to see in real life when painting plein air because the waves are crashing and it's just, you're more or less working from memory a lot of the time and what you know and understand about waves. So there were certain things that were really beneficial with the photograph, but as far as how I applied the paint and how I approached this painting, it was very much like a plein air painting. So again, I think it's really valuable to get outdoors, do some plein air painting, make that a part of what you do. Regardless of the type of painting you do, I think it'll make you a better studio painter. Plus, it's just a fun thing to do. So, but you guys have heard me say that multiple times. I'm looking to get out. In fact, I might be going out. I am going out plein air painting tomorrow. And so who knows, maybe there'll be a video about that. But if not, there will be one soon. So things are opening up and I'm looking forward to getting back out on location. Anyway, thanks for hanging out, guys. Let me know what you think in the comments and stay creative, and I'll see you guys in the next video.